Hello and welcome. I'm Psychic Medium Roberto, and I truly hope you are doing well today. In today's case of Mystery Psychic Files, I'm going to be looking at the Marilyn Monroe case, and she died on August the 4th, 1962. So I'm going to have a look at the Kennedy brothers as well as Jackie Kennedy, and just have a look to see if there was any involvement with this death or uh, debunk any kind of theories that they were involved. So let's take a look. All right, let me take a moment to focus and tune in. All right, so who was Marilyn Monroe? She was born on June the 1st, 1926, and that gives us the 6, 1, and 18, 9. With the 7, 9, and 16, 7 outcome. So Marilyn Monroe had a life path of 7. Now, 7s are very interesting when it comes to media and publicity and movies and that kind of thing. And in most cases, 7s will be picked out of the crowd to be chosen to do some kind of media event or a movie or build her to become a star. So Marilyn Monroe with the 7 outcome was all about media, entertainment, was about freedom, was about travel. So we see that in the 7s. She also has the double 9. Now double 9s, or at least 9s, very intuitive people, very creative people, innovative people, people with ideas. And with those 9s sitting right there with the 7, 9, that is very prominent in her day-to-day living, day-to-day life, would have lots of ideas, and would always want to give those ideas. And and with those 9s, I would imagine, during the 60s and 50s, we saw this in the Elizabeth Short case. Now, what's also significant about the connection with these two cases is, we have this fantastic, bubbling woman, energetic woman, full of ideas, out in the front of the media, the most popular woman at the time, we would say. And yet, during the 60s and 50s, women would have had a very difficult time trying to get their point across, and would almost be regarded as second-class citizens in relations to men. So Marilyn would be dealing with those issues as well. And, with these 6 from the June, very friendly, very outgoing, about connection, about fun, creating family, creating a community around her. They don't necessarily have to be her family, but she would treat them as family. And with the 16, 7 outcome, very vocal, out there, wanting to be out and about, doesn't like to be kept in a closet, as it were, or in a bedroom, needs to be out there with the people. And I would just say overall, lovely numbers, very relevant for the media industry, entertainment industry, and a very flamboyant woman. And of course, we know she did a lot of good as well in the world. And so let's see now if I bring in the main slide with Jacqueline Kennedy, as well as Robert F. Kennedy, as well as John F. Kennedy. So what was going on the day of her death? We have August the 4th, 1962. We have the 8, the 4, and the 9. Now what's very striking here is we have the appearance of the double 9s, which we see the double 9s in Marilyn. And we also see the double 9s in John F. Kennedy. No coincidence there. Now, if we go back to August the 4th, we have the 12-3 outcome of the day, the 9, and the 12-3 of the outcome of the entire day. Now, what concerns me about the 12-3s is all about control issues. Control, control, control. And who was trying to control Marilyn Monroe on this day falls directly on Robert F. Kennedy. And I heard a report just yesterday that they had been seen together during the day, and there was some kind of argument. And we see that in the 12-3, right? Now, the 12-3 I'm referring to is the 12-3 plus 9. because by the end of the day, so that 12:39, when the sun starts to set, that's the result. And that pings directly on Robert F. Kennedy. And, you know, if that report is valid, I can certainly see it in here that the 12:3 is all about control issues, someone trying to control someone else. And I can tell you now, Marilyn Monroe was definitely not the person to be controlled or even try to be controlled. She will not put up with it with those 6s and 7s, okay, as well as the 9s. However, what I believe what was happening on this day is the following. Although Robert F. Kennedy was at the cold face, in other words, with Marilyn Monroe on the day that she died, there was issues going on. We note the 4 and the 8 in his date of birth with that square black block, which is present on the morning that Marilyn Monroe woke up. He was in her face, so to speak, 8 and the 4 and the 12:3. So there was obviously an ongoing issue going into this day. And in this case, I haven't filled out the days, and I was just looking at the actual day that she died. And I believe the situation here is, although Robert F. Kennedy was being in her face, there was arguments, there was control issues going on. I don't believe that Robert F. Kennedy pulled the trigger per se as a metaphor. However, he was putting a lot of pressure on her, probably making her feel lesser than what she is. You know, with any male, and any person for that matter, but in this case with Robert F. Kennedy, with that 3 life path. 3 life paths are people about control, power. Now, in a positive sense, that can be all about community, bringing people together in his political life. He certainly has the numbers 11-2, the 22. That is all about bringing people together. 11-2 is also about law, bringing people together, the bigger community. And with the 12-3, that would fit perfectly well with his political career, right? The only issue is when you start dealing with personal relationships, where Robert F. Kennedy might come off the platform feeling really in control, the people love him, but in his own life was being rejected by Marilyn Monroe, for example. And with a life path 3, definitely wouldn't be able to handle that kind of thing. And anyway, I find it quite bizarre that Robert F. Kennedy would have an affair with Marilyn Monroe after his brother John F. Kennedy. I think that speaks volumes as to the type of character Robert actually was, that this was a man out of control. And on that day, there was big control issues, forcing Marilyn Monroe into this little corner, into a little box. And of course, she wasn't going to stand up for that. Now, I believe what happened on this day is the concern. Now, I've got to be very clear with what I'm saying here. The concern would have originated from Jacqueline Kennedy, I believe. She has the 8 and the 3 of the day, also 3 about control issues. We see the 3 play out at the end of the day as well. We have the 8, that is all about communication. So if we look at August 4th, 1962, on the start of that day, 849 pings directly on Jacqueline and pings directly on Robert F. Kennedy. Now, I believe Jacqueline would have spoken to John F. Kennedy. Now, he would have just been starting his presidency a year in, I believe. And I believe Marilyn Monroe was becoming an issue as far as Jacqueline was concerned, that she was becoming an issue. Okay? And she was not going to put up with this any longer. And with that 11-2 with Jacqueline, is all about, you know, on the positive, as mentioned with Robert, bringing people together. It's a very legal number. It's a power number. And I would say Jacqueline in her public life, she did exactly that. And again, once we have the situation when there's a personal situation, which this was, of course, that 11-2 can be very nasty. Okay? The 8 can be very nasty, and the 3 can be very nasty. And I believe Jacqueline would have communicated to John F. Kennedy about the situation. Now, Kennedy has the 11-2 there as well from his 29. But I believe the communication would have continued from John F. Kennedy to Robert Kennedy, that he needs to end the situation. An end must be put here that's causing too much public scandal. And I believe that's when Robert lost control, and the mounting pressure that he was putting on Marilyn Monroe would obviously then create cracks within Marilyn Monroe. So in this case, although she might have consumed pills or forced pills even in that case, because 9 in the context of a negative situation also indicates murder. Now, abuse, when we're talking about verbal abuse, very manipulative coming from Robert F. Kennedy, very abusive, harmful, and can be really demeaning, particularly when you have a male with a 3 outcome on a person like Marilyn Monroe with the 7 outcome. Not going to happen. But he was putting so much pressure on her that was creating a very negative energy around Marilyn Monroe, and would of course force her into the situation that she was. Now the story is that she had consumed large amounts of pills, which I don't believe is the case. With that 9 sitting there, it talks about murder. Murder. You don't have to pull the trigger, but you can certainly push people in a direction that would create a negative or destructive outcome, as we find with Marilyn Monroe. Now, I would just say, just going back and going on a little bit of a tangent here, let's look at the Marilyn Monroe date of birth and the John F. Kennedy date of birth. Now, I don't mean to be mean or anything, but there is more in common between Marilyn Monroe and John F. Kennedy. So if you look at Marilyn Monroe, 99, John F. Kennedy, 99. We have the 7 and the 9 of the outcome of the day, which John F. Kennedy also has 7-9. And the outcome of 16-7, John F. Kennedy also has 16-7. Now, these guys were highly compatible. Now, because of his position, he could not continue the relationship, of course, because he was married, obviously. But I'm just saying that these guys were very well connected. John F. Kennedy and Marilyn Monroe, very connected, actually, very connected. Now, when you look at Jacqueline Kennedy in relation to John F. Kennedy, there is very little that connects the two. And in my opinion, this was a marriage of convenience. It was a marriage set in law with the 11-2, and it was a marriage about position. Okay, it was a marriage about position. And Jacqueline knew what she was doing when she wanted to be with John F. Kennedy. It was a marriage of convenience, a marriage in law. It was about position. Okay, there's very little that connects them. She is an outcome 11-2. He has the 11-2 on the day that he's born. So very little. I mean, there is a connection, but very insignificant if you look at a marriage type thing. And of course, she does have the 7 in the July, and he has an outcome 7. But for me, that's not a definite match in terms of this was a loving couple, loved each other, were very respectful of each other. Not the case. This was a marriage of position from Jacqueline's point of view. Okay. So when we look at Jacqueline in connection with Robert F. Kennedy, they have similarities. They have the 8s, they have the 3s, and the 11-2. So in fact, Jacqueline was more connected to Robert Kennedy than she was with his brother John F. Kennedy. And I believe there was manipulation games going on here. She would have spoken to Robert Kennedy. This has to stop. We need to get rid of her. We need to stop this whole situation. It's reflecting bad on his presidency, on John F. Kennedy's presidency, and action was taken, in my opinion. And unfortunately, the person that suffered at the end of this was Marilyn Monroe, because she passed way before time at the age of 36. And it's worth noting that her age, 36 with an outcome 9, and we look at Robert F. Kennedy with the 36 outcome 9. There was war going on between these people. There was a war going on between these 4 people. And I believe in the case, the more prominent people that were featuring on this day were Jacqueline Kennedy, as well as Robert F. Kennedy. Okay. However, I do believe that John F. Kennedy, with those double 9s, would have been aware of the situation. And I believe this was planned removal of Marilyn Monroe, in my opinion. There are too many significant numbers hitting directly on Marilyn Monroe from Robert's point of view, from John's point of view, as well as Jacqueline's point of view. And when you get these amount of numbers, you can see the August 4th, 1962, all in red numbers. That's an indication for me that all these people were involved on that day. And the person leading the situation was Robert F. Kennedy. With the outcome, now when you have an outcome 3 in a death, that already raises alarms. And this was about control issues, and by a man and woman, with the outcome of a death of a woman, number 3. So I believe this was a triangle of sorts, where we have 3 people in motion against 1 person, and the tragic outcome of a death of Marilyn Monroe. I must say, with numerology, it's always interesting how when you lay out the numbers and you see the people involved and the impact on these people, this was a tragic case of Robert F. Kennedy out of control. And I believe Jacqueline Kennedy was also trying to exercise control on the situation, with the outcome of a murder of Marilyn Monroe. All right, let me know what your thoughts are, and please leave your comments. I would love to hear your comments. If you have not subscribed, please hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and hit that notification for future uploads. And I would just say stay safe and stay alert, and I'll see you in the next one.